1 in 5 Americans suffer from chronic pain. Many are now using CBD for relief.
Activists are hoping pot could be legalized nationwide by the end of 2019.
When you look at premium cannabis, the Illinois House approved legalizing recreational marijuana.
Welcome to The Budding Report, a weekly show centered around all things cannabis. Please join us in welcoming our host, Charles Horton, and his co-host, Melissa Nasits, as they share the latest in cannabis news, conduct interviews with top leaders in the cannabis space, and promote some of the latest in science and innovation. And now to our host, Charles Horton.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Budding Report. Boy, we are getting a lot of these down, aren't we, Melissa? How are you doing today, Melissa?
I'm doing great. Good to be here as always. And you know, it's October, so my favorite month, creeping closer to my birthday, Halloween, and Election Day. So I've got a lot that I'm looking forward to, hopefully.
Well, I can't wait until the election is over myself. I'm tired of all of the noise. Been beautiful weather here in Dallas. I love waking up to like 50 degrees, although we had a 97-degree high this week. That's weird.
It is weird. It's going to be a little warmer today as well, but it will cool back down. So it's that time of year.
Dr. Shaw, how are you? Where are you? What's new?
I'm in Indianapolis. As for the weather, this will be the last day I think that it'll be above 70, and then tomorrow kind of going down in the low 60s for the highs and the high 30s for the lows, and we'll continue to go towards winter.
You kind of have a superhero thing going on where you're
Is that your cape fluttering?
Bigger. I thought you might be the Incredible Hulk or something there. Well, Chris, how are you? How's the weather down in Austin? What's new?
I'm doing great. Weather's good today. It's actually still getting a little hot in the afternoons, but we're waking up with really nice 60-degree mornings. And it's getting election time. There were 35,000 people came out to vote yesterday in Travis County. I was not one of them. They were lined up at 6:30. I'll vote next week when it's a little easier. But they're doing records, absolute records in voting right now. So it's really exciting.
Absolutely. Everybody go out and vote. And then we have two guests. I'll do a brief introduction in case they want to talk during the news segment. We have Evelynn LaChapelle from the Last Prisoner Project. Why am I having trouble pronouncing that? But welcome, Evelynn.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And the weather is pretty good in Oakland, California today as well.
How about the smoke? Or is the smoke all gone?
It's cleared up a little bit. My car is still covered in ashes, but that may be because I haven't made it to the car wash yet.
Yeah, my car is filthy all of the time. I don't make it very often. It's filthy. And then we have Jamie Pearson from Bhang. Am I pronouncing the business right? I made sure I had your last name right, but I didn't check the pronunciation of your business. You're muted.
Darn it. Sorry about that. Yes, that's correct.
And where are you located, and how's the weather there?
I'm in Billings, Montana, and it's beautiful.
Billings, Montana. That's an interesting place to be from. I don't think we've had anyone from Billings yet. But
no, probably not.
A lot of space up there to roam, isn't there?
Big sky, right?
Yep. Yeah, we've got a lot of people buying property sight unseen, trying to get away from COVID. And so people are discovering Billings. They haven't known it before.
You know, that's interesting. I just bought a ranch in East Texas to develop as a retreat wellness center type place. And we were on our fourth place, and we literally had to make an all cash full price offer in order to get it. And if we would have waited one more day, it would have been gone.
Yeah, I'm hearing that it's happening in southern Massachusetts, in Texas, and in Montana, that there's a real estate boom happening here for sure.
I guess the other side of that story, though, is the person I bought the house from, and I never knew him, of course, but he's the only one I know of that died of COVID. So there was 60 days in there, but yeah, he was out with 55 acres to himself, and he succumbed to COVID, but according to my neighbor, he had a lot of other issues too. Well, we're going to get right to the news. Chris, South Dakota will make marijuana history in November. What's going on in South Dakota, Chris?
That's absolutely right, Charles. It's exciting times in the Mount Rushmore state, not because a statue of Trump is going up on Mount Rushmore, but because they're actually 2 ballot measures. It's kind of unheard of. They have a medical marijuana measure and a recreational measure in South Dakota. Hopefully people click both, because the recreational one would make it the 12th state. We have 11 states now that have recreational cannabis legal. 2/3 of states, of course, have some type of cannabis legal, including medical marijuana, medical cannabis. So it's really exciting times up there. They don't even have a medical marijuana program ready yet. So they're just going to vote for it, and then the legislature would make a medical marijuana program if it passes. And South Dakota is not the only one. Mississippi has a medical measure on the ballot. And then we have 3 recreational measures on ballots in 3 other states, New Jersey, Arizona, both of which are expected to pass. And then the closely contested one will be in Montana, where Jamie is over in Billings. So we might get to hear what the flavor. Actually, I'll throw it to Jamie. What's the flavor of the people's opinion of cannabis out there? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, people don't realize we've had a medical program in Montana for about, I might get this wrong, but around 15 years. We were one of the first 5 after California. And so, marijuana is used, pretty openly in Montana. And for those of you who don't listen to country music, I'll enlighten you that just as many country music artists, sing about smoking marijuana as rap artists do or R&B artists do. It is a very normal part of Montana culture. So the interesting thing about what happened in Montana is when we voted, 76% of the population voted for medical marijuana 15 years ago. It's been an ongoing fight with our Republican-leaning legislature, who are heavily influenced by, outside money, pharma, all the other things that, other legislatures are influenced by, including Congress. So it's been a battle to get the government to abide by the will of the people. So now what's happened is there's 2 ballot measures. Actually, people don't realize that either. There's 2 ballot measures on our ballots, which I just got today's mail. And they're both to pass recreational marijuana in Montana. And we do expect one or both of them to pass. It should be interesting to see what happens.
Do you think it's going to have that 70+% approval rating?
It's possible. It's very popular here, and people want marijuana. The reason they want it is we're one of the states where there's a low percentage of people that have health insurance, and so people are self-medicating in Montana, in large numbers, per capita. So people are using CBD and cannabis in place of opiates and in place of anti-seizure, anti-anxiety medicine in Montana. It's very normal. And part of that's because we're so rural. It's very difficult for people who live, 50 miles from the closest medical practitioner to get medicine. So, it's normal for people to use cannabis.
Well, it's interesting that you say it's been 15 years in the medical that you've had the medical law passed. For me, I didn't really get into the industry until last year. And it just seems like it's all happening really fast, but it's good that you say it's been 15 years, so it kind of had a slow start. Would you say it's picking up now?
Oh, I'll tell you, I've been a landlord to one of the largest cannabis growers in Montana for 12 years. And one of the other guys that I do business with that owns a company called Lionheart, he's dealing with 4,000 patients single-handedly, and in grand scheme of things, for the people in bigger markets, that sounds like peanuts. But you got to remember, we only have 1 million people in the state of Montana, and you have to have a medical condition to get a card. So the short answer is, it's not picking up. It's been here all along. The issue is whether or not people like my mother, who would never break the law, would join in, and she's waiting for it to be openly legal. Now, she's also sober, so my mom won't use cannabis for a whole nother, litany of reasons. But, people like my mom would love to be able to get away from the stigma and go towards something that they don't feel like they're breaking the law.
Well, I certainly hope for the federal legislation to make this choice for everybody in every state in the country. But we're going to go off to a commercial break now. And when we come back, we're going to have Evelynn LaChapelle with us. So we'll be right back.
Coming to you after our hike that we finished. Buster exercises 3 miles. Today is a recovery day because he did 8-mile hike over the weekend, broken up into 2. But what I want to share with you is this company here called Simple Changes. I learned about them and I absolutely love the concept. It's wellness, community, and organization. So as you can see here, I love the wrapping. I love purple, and it comes with 3 products. So I've been trying them out. First, it's the hemp oil spray, then it's the hemp oil dropper, and the hemp oil ball. So I'll be trying all of these out. I've been exploring them, exploring ingredients. I met with the team on Zoom. Really neat product. And I love the fact that they also want to incorporate healthy practices. So they come with a little journal and something about Simple Success Guide. So, Simple Changes.
And we're back. So now we're joined by Evelynn LaChapelle. She's an ambassador with the Last Prisoner Project. She started working with them after a 2013 conviction and then release. She is also community engagement manager at Vertosa, a host of the Heart of Cannabis, and is working on the launch of 87, which is her own personal line of cannabis accessories. So one of the things I always like to do is kind of kick it off with the question of how you entered into the cannabis industry.
Through prison.
Well, that works.
Not the ideal way to enter the industry, but yes, in 2009, I was involved in the traditional market and allowed cannabis profits to be deposited into my personal bank account, and that landed me an 87-month prison sentence.
Wow.
Yuck. How did you transition into the legal industry?
And so that has really been a surprise, and I had no intentions of entering the industry. The federal government had done its job in scaring the crap out of me. And so what happened was I was released and went back to work at the hotel, sales and catering coordinator, doing what I had done prior to incarceration, and I was fired. And after a coworker Googled my name and unveiled my conviction to Human Resources. And so it was then that I connected with Last Prisoner Project, really just on the basis of sharing my story and putting a face to their purpose. And in that, I met the CEO and the Chief Innovation Officer of Vertosa. And they quickly onboarded me as their community engagement manager, really to do the events and things that I had done at the hotels. And so that was my transition. One door closed and another one opened. And I'm so glad that it did.
So we spoke a little bit about this prior to the show. I'm wondering if you can kind of explain what the Prisoner Project actually does.
Absolutely. So Last Prisoner Project was started by Steve D'Angelo and Sarah Gerstein and Mary Bailey, 3 wonderful people. And their purpose really was to rectify the injustice and be a voice for the 40,000 inmates who are still currently incarcerated for nonviolent cannabis offenses. And they focus on clemency to get the inmates out, and then on reentry. And so when I was introduced to them through a co-defendant of mine, Corvain Cooper, who is currently serving a life sentence for nonviolent cannabis offense. He's 11 years into a sentence. He had been in contact with them, introduced me, and like I said, it was just on, to share my story. And this week I'm onboarding as their reentry coordinator, because I know truly the trials of what it is to reenter society and what you're missing and the resources that you need. And they're just doing a really good job at filling that void. There's a lot of social equity programs in the industry that I appreciate greatly to rectify and undo some of the injustices that have been done to people of color. But Last Prisoner Project, I think, and has been the only organization that I've seen that is focused on those who are still currently incarcerated for the plan.
At what point, Evelynn, did you figure out that your sentence was unjust?
when I got home and saw all the billboards, right? Um, in prison, everyone, it doesn't matter what you think, everyone is sitting there with this idea that they're unjustly there. And I never really felt that because of the harsh sentence that I received. It sort of did something to my mental. If you receive a 7-year sentence, for me, it was you did something terribly wrong. And so it wasn't really until I came home and right outside of my house is a billboard for ease. And then my first trip into MedMen. And then it just sort of started to sit in my soul a little different, that what I had experienced was definitely unjust.
Sure, that's difficult. I mean, how would you reconcile the fact that now you're working in a legal industry and where your past has come from? I mean, is there you look at people, like you said, that are still serving time for something that's completely legal in the state. So, I mean, where do you work in that traditional market? I mean, what are your feelings about that?
My feelings have yet to be processed. So it's been like go, go, go. When you're released, you have 2 weeks to find a job. And there hasn't been a moment where I can like sit and really process the experience. I think I'm 2 years out now and I'm just starting to scratch the surface of reconciling my feelings, but definitely some days extremely angry. I sit in our weekly meetings and we're discussing kilos, and those are the same kilos that had me in prison for all those years. But I can move out of the angry position when I am now starting to build in this industry and build a personal brand and launch the cannabis accessory line. And so I'm able to rectify the harsh reality of my sentence by owning a piece of the industry. I absolutely feel now that the industry owes me a piece and I am here to claim it. And that's how I feel better.
Well, I can't tell you how happy that makes me hear that you're able to create something positive out of this. I mean, it's a tragedy that you lost those years, and I know you can't get those back. By the fact that you're helping others, and the fact that you found a career in this, and that now it's almost coming back to you. I hope that you find some sort of reconciliation in that, as you'd say. So anyway, I just wanted to say that that's wonderful to hear. So thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
I got 2 questions for you. You said earlier 40,000 people are still currently incarcerated. Is that in the United States or in a single state?
That is in the United States. And the problem with that number is the number is probably much greater than that. But that is those that can be identified with only cannabis charges. And so in a lot of situations, you could be getting picked up, or they're using cannabis as a way to address or pick you up, but then you get stuck with a harsher sentence for another crime. And so those are not really accounted for, where cannabis was maybe the initial entryway for law enforcement. But for those 40,000 for sure are sitting with only cannabis convictions, nonviolent cannabis convictions.
You also talked about social equity programs. Could you talk a little bit more about social equity programs, where they're at, how you feel about them, who they work for and who they don't?
Yes, I am not that well versed, and which is the problem that I saw with the social equity programs, is that they are not in the forefront of the cannabis industry as a whole. So I sat on a panel, I think my first panel was at High Times 2019, last year. And I'm on there and there's like social equity organizers, and here I am fresh out of prison. And that was my first time ever hearing about a social equity program, and that ownership was available to those who were previously incarcerated. Of course, you got to apply and you have to have lived in I think Oakland, like our social equity program, you have to live here at least for 10 years, had a felon, and then of course have some capital. But I did not hear about that until I was sitting on a panel. And so I don't think that they are as available as they could be, and that is legislation, and that's just the law. I think that is outside of the organizer's ability. But I also don't think that everyone coming out of prison is looking for ownership. I do intend now to possibly in the future get a piece of ownership, but for me, what was comfortable and what has made my transition run smoothly is that I stayed in my lane. What I have experiences in was sales and coordinating events. And so when Vertosa found a place for me in my lane, it really sparked something for me that if we can transition traditional participants in this industry into the legal industry in their own lane, then we will build a more equitable industry. So it doesn't have to be dispensary ownership. It could be, if marketing is your thing, if sales and tech is your thing, like I would like to see social equity programs geared at transitioning us into the industry outside of ownership. Although ownership is key, and so I support them, and I will never take away from that. But for some, you that's not your thing, because the dispensary is a lot. It's like owning a retail store, and so maybe that's not your thing. And so I would like to see us have more seats at the table.
I think you definitely need that. It seems, at least in California, I learned from sitting on panels too, how the social equity programs work, and to even apply for a license. At least when I was on a panel last, you had to have a lease for 10 years signed. So that's a considerable investment, and for a very small percentage of chance that you actually get the license. But Evelyn, I appreciate you being on. If you'd like to get contact information for Evelyn or the Last Prisoner Project, be sure to go to our website, thebuddingreport.com. Everybody loves to hear from you, so please check out our website, get that contact information, and talk to our guests, please. Well, we will be right back after this brief message.
Hello, hello. Here on my lunch run in the middle of the heat, where I get my break really quick after training clients and leading some classes. I am taking my Simply Satisfy. It is 3 sprays, organic hemp. Next one is my Simply Start. You can take it twice a day or once a day. I already took one morning dose. I'm now taking my afternoon dose. One little yummy organic hemp. Check them out. Simply Generous. Helicopter. Alright, time to go train and run down the hill. Bye-bye.
And now we get to welcome Jamie Pearson. She is the CEO of Bhang. So this is a leader in the all-female executive team in development and execution, one of the most influential women in cannabis, and the 2019 High Times Female 50 honoree. So a rare second-generation cannabis executive. We don't see many of those around. So we're very excited to have you here. And why don't you kick it off with the same question I sort of lead everyone in. So what put you into this cannabis industry in the first place?
I'll say it's two people were instrumental in getting me in here. One was my dad. He's been growing cannabis for 55 years, probably 56 now. We just harvested his outdoor crop last weekend. And so, growing cannabis is a family affair. And so I've grown up with it, but I was a high school and college athlete. And so I was never really participating in using cannabis, and really bought into the stigma. Meanwhile, on my mom's side, DJ Muggs of Cypress Hill is my first cousin. And so, and he and I are 6 months apart in age. We've grown up together. We've raised our children together, and we're best friends. And so I've had sort of the poster child of the legalization movement, kind of operating right around me. And, everywhere I went, there was cannabis, and I was just not part of it. So when cannabis became legal in California, and as it started, catching fire, Cypress was getting more deal offers to, be involved in cannabis. And so Muggs and I have been investing in real estate together. That was my previous occupation for 25 years. I've been a real estate investor professionally for a long time. And he and I invested in real estate together for about now it's going on 18 years. And so when he was getting deal offers, he would send me the contracts, and, I'd pick them apart, send them back to him and say, ask them this, ask them that. And so pretty soon he just said, why don't you find us a cannabis deal? And I said, I don't know anything about cannabis. He's like, oh, grasshopper, but I think you do. So, one thing led to another, and here I am.
Well, what is Bhang, and what sets you apart in the cannabis space?
So Bhang is a publicly traded company on the Canadian Securities Exchange. We trade under the symbol BHNG, and we're also on the OTC markets in America under BHNGF. We were born in Oakland 10 years ago with a single flagship dark chocolate bar, and we're famous for our cannabis-infused gourmet chocolate. We celebrated our 10th year in business last month, and we went public a year ago. From that single flagship chocolate bar, we have grown into a brand that is now available for purchase in 7, soon to be 9 states. We are the #1 and #2 edible in Canada, and our CBD line is distributed in 47 states and in 9 European countries.
So where do you see the future expansion? Do you think perhaps Latin American market would be next?
No, I think what we're looking really to do is a twofold process, or really a threefold process. One is we're focused heavily on the California market because we recently took that market back from a licensee and are operating it ourselves, and really enjoy the walk a mile in your shoes experience we're gaining, because as we help the licensees in the other states, it allows us to kind of experience what they're going through. So we're finding that California experience to be very educational for us as an executive team in our support of others. And also, we are in the second prong, expanding our footprint in more legal states. And then from there, we're looking at more product innovation and basically expanding the velocity and the sell-through in the places where we expand to and where we currently exist.
What is your expansion strategy?
Well, the main thing is, this is one of those things. It's a great question, because what a lot of people don't realize, I imagine if your viewers understand how cannabis works, they know that with it being federally illegal, we cannot manufacture in one facility and send it all over state lines. So what I think about is when Anheuser-Busch at the end of Prohibition started making beer, the minute Prohibition ended, they put it on trucks and they could cross state lines. What we're having to do in cannabis is everywhere you exist, you have to manufacture and sell within the boundaries of that state. So what it causes us to have to do is find great operators in different states who are looking for a turnkey edible. And that's really the expansion strategy, is kind of parallel processing the need to find people to work with who are good operators and who have a need for a product like Bhang in their lineup, but at the same time understanding that with federal legalization and with us being public, we are going to need to have a way to purchase our IP back, or pay people to allow us to take control of our brand again. So it's a very delicate contractual relationship. And right now we have great partners. We're picky. That's why our expansion hasn't been fast and furious like some of the other people you see out in the world. But I would rather have great partners and strong marriages than, whatever that 90 days and married and then end up divorced, a year later. So, we're careful about who we partner with, but that's the strategy, is to find great partners out there. So if you're listening and you're in one of those states that's legal and you are looking for a great quality edible that is turnkey, find me and let's talk.
I'm just wishing we had him here in Texas, because I want to go. I want to go try one. I do have one more question for you before we go, and I'd really like everybody's input on this. With the current administration has chosen not to go after anybody that's running state in basically state legal models. How does that make you, what kind of business decisions, how does that change your business decisions, and that a different administration or the current administration could change their minds? Like Jeff Sessions kept saying constantly he wasn't for the business at all, but never went after it. What do you think of all that?
Well, first, Jeff Sessions also said that bad people use cannabis. So anything that came out of his mouth, I don't give two rips about. Second of all, none of it changes the way we operate, because until it's federally legal, we are going to follow state law and continue operating within the bounds of wherever we're operating, and make sure that we're very clear about what's allowed and what's not allowed. And the hard part is the rules change constantly, so it's really difficult to keep up. And that's the other advantage of having a great partner on the ground in those legal states, because they know what's happening in their states. And so it really doesn't change anything. I am hoping that the current administration is eliminated in November. And I think for more than just the cannabis industry, but for humanity in general, we need him gone. And I'm sorry if I'm offending you if you're listening, but that is my opinion. And I've got my fingers crossed, and I hope we grab him by the ballot.
Well, I hope the next administration isn't any different on the marijuana industry. Chris, what's your predictions on change of administration and the federal law on marijuana?
I'm going to go out on a limb. I think you're going to see the biggest landslide you've seen in a long time. I have faith in the American people that when somebody is an autocrat and tries to take democracy from them, that is why people were lining up from 6:30 in the morning yesterday, and that is why people are going out the very first day. 97% of people are registered here in Travis County. The ground is it's not even really about Democratic versus Republican. It's about somebody being a human and respecting humanity and making people's lives better. So if one party wants to go totally away from humanity and being so anti-cannabis, I mean, that's one of the most bipartisan issues. So, I think you're going to see people come out and say, this is right. It is wrong what's happened the last 4 years, and we're going to get somebody in there that actually cares about people. So I think you're going to see something like 60-40 and something over 400 electoral votes.
Well, and I think honestly, traditionally, the Democratic Party has been more pro-legalization on all levels. Although, like you said, it is a bipartisan issue at this point, or it is becoming where people are seeing the money that can be made. So regardless, I don't think that we're going to go backward. I think that we could go a lot further faster, forward faster, with the change in government. But I think that's just my personal opinion, too.
I certainly hope we're going forward. Well, Jamie, thank you for joining us. Remember, you can get all of our guest contact information on our website, thebuddingreport.com. Jamie is looking for partners, and sounds like she's got a great brand. And if I was in a state that it was legal, I'd be interested in partnering and getting that brand out and, having a few bars along the way myself. So thank you again for joining us. Join us next week when our guests include Rick Brattenberg of the Clinitel Capital Management Group and Warren Bobrow, the Cocktail Whisperer. Boy, this is going to be right up your alley, Melissa. So look forward to that show next week. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great day.